So good afternoon. Thanks for coming. So just so people know who you are, they may have heard of your dad, but Gotham, what do you do?
I'm Deepak Chopra's son. What else is there to know?
Saw a movie about that.
Yes. I'm definitely Deepak Chopra's son, always on the phone. I am a storyteller. I used to struggle with identifying what I am, what I do, all of that. I tell stories, and apropos to the conference that you are hosting, there are so many different ways to express ourselves now that, you know, to sort of call yourself a novelist feels like such an archaic idea to me. I tell stories in films, so it's in books, publishing. I have a comic book company.
Really?
I blog a lot. We're now working together as a family with YouTube on a whole new partnership and project that we're excited about. So I tell stories. I come from a journalism background. I've also worked in Hollywood a lot. And I enjoy what I do, and now I'm a dad, so
wow, yes.
I'm starting to realize, oh, that's why he did that, you know, and I have a whole new perspective on the world. So that's who I am.
And how do you describe your sister?
Interesting. Put me on the spot right to start. My sister will tell you that she's a mom, first and foremost.
Yes.
But she's also, you know, Mallika's more... I'm the black sheep of the family, I would say, but of course in the Chopra family it's more beige than black, but Mallika is sort of the apple that has not fallen far from the tree. She's probably a better living embodiment of a lot of my dad's principles. She and my mom, definitely more so than my dad and I. And so when she talks about the wellness industry and what's going on in the space, and she lives it more authentically, frankly, and than I do, certainly. So that's how I would describe her.
Okay. I should record those words.
They're being recorded.
Brother, yeah.
I promise you we're being recorded. So
absolutely, I always introduce myself as I'm a mom. I have 2 girls, Tara and Leela.
And you're the opposite of those other moms, I would argue.
You know, I was listening to them, and again, we all come with different philosophies. Someone recently asked me, you know, are you the tiger mom or not? And the thing is, my intent is to be a good mom. My intent is to aspire to be the best mom that I can be, and that does drive me. It drives me in my personal decisions and my professional decisions and everything I do. So, you know, my intent is to be a good mom, and that really does define, I think, who I am. I'm also a sister and a daughter. Personally and professionally, I've been fascinated by how we can use media to change the world and change our own lives and social issues, global issues, spiritual issues. So in that, my different ventures include Intent.com, which Jeff has been a good advisor and supporter of. We just relaunched that, and we're really excited. That's about basically telling the story of our intents, who we aspire to be as individuals, members of a global society, citizens of planet Earth. And then, as Gotham mentioned, we're about to embark on a really exciting new project as a Chopra family. It's probably the first time we've really come together on something, but launching a new channel on YouTube called the Chopra Well, and I invite everyone to come and subscribe and join us there. But that will be really using video to tell the stories that all of us are really passionate about.
And Deepak, how are you doing?
I'm great, Jeff. Always
Isn't this great? Your
so much fun to see you.
And it's fun to, I just think having your kids next to you is just, it's fun. And by the way, if your dad says anything, if you disagree, call bullshit, it's okay.
That's what I do.
Bullshit recycles as life, right?
Tweet that. Wow.
The universe is a recycling plant, and if it wasn't for shit, there wouldn't be any life.
This is true. So how have you been?
I'm great, thank you.
So what was your reaction sitting down at South by Southwest and watching your son's movie about you and the way people were reacting to it? Did he capture the essence of parts of you?
I would say there was a lot of skillful editing, so it showed a perspective that I didn't have of myself, so I was glad to see my son's perspective. And I actually enjoyed the movie very much. I think it's a good movie. But when he shows me on the BlackBerry all the time, that's not really the way it is.
BS. Yeah.
Well, and I should probably just put in some context. So the film is called Decoding Deepak, and I spent a year pretty much following my dad around, literally trying to decode the icon that he has become and why does Lady Gaga seem to love him and Kim Kardashian seem to love him versus the guy we grew up and that with, and is still, you know, while thousands, millions of people come to him looking for answers, he's still a guy who I think will say himself is asking a lot of questions. And so I think the film was a attempt to really pull that apart and figure out who it is. But like he says, it is one, and I realized that too. You know, it's funny, someone I think recently came to him and said, "Oh, I heard your son made a movie about you." And he said, "No, my son made a movie about himself." And I, you know, I have to agree with him. I realized halfway through it that as much as it was about him, it was about me figuring out who I am and what I want and, you know, what the world is looking for in many ways.
So Deepak, what's on your mind today? When you wake up in the morning, what do you think about? What concerns you?
Well, you know, just to put it in context, I'm 65 years old, okay, even though biologically I think I'm still 20, but chronologically I'm 65. So chronologically this is the autumn of my life, you know, the spring and summer is over. So obviously my priorities have shifted. It's, and that's why I'm so happy to do this YouTube channel, the Chopra Well, with my kids, because what's on my mind more than anything else is the idea that if we had a critical mass of people living a conscious life, being present for the future, if we had a critical mass of people doing that, we would have a more peaceful, just, sustainable, and healthier and happier world. And it's possible. Right now we live in a world where 50% of the world lives on less than $2 a day. 20% lives on less than $1 a day. We have climate chaos, we have war, terrorism, we have international trade on weapons of mass destruction, we have extinction of species, we have social injustice in America, 1% versus 99%. And these are, if you look at these problems separately, they seem almost impossible to tackle. But there's enough data that shows that if people transform personally, that results in social transformation. The key, as Mahatma Gandhi said, can you be the change you want to see in the world? And I see through social networks, through you, you know, that's why I'm so thrilled when I met you in Germany in DLD. I see that what is happening, and I'll stop soon, but since you asked me the question.
No, please.
What's happening is, through Twitter and through other social networks, through YouTube, through Facebook, we are seeing something very dramatic. What we are seeing is that we are creating a global identity, but we're also laying the neural networks for a global brain. There's no mental event, okay, that doesn't have a brain representation. So if you say something nasty, it goes. It spreads virally. You say something nice and make one person happy today, that also goes, you know. So what I'm seeing is that we are actually laying the synaptic connections between the global neurons. And that has a biological effect. There's nothing that happens in your brain that doesn't happen in your body. And what happens in your body and your brain shapes assumptions, perceptions, beliefs, expectations, moods, emotions. So it ends up influencing everything from personal relationships to social interactions, to how we create the environment, because the environment is an extension of ourselves, to how we speak to each other, to how we solve problems. I think the fact that we still have to solve problems through violence, it's medieval. You know, we have behaviors that go back thousands of years, and tribal identities, and we have modern technology at the same time. So with this technology, which is huge capacity, we can create a peaceful, just, sustainable, healthy world. There are solutions to all the problems that I mentioned. They're at hand, and the key is for us to connect.
So what would be a first step in that? Yeah, come on.
Just an average dinner conversation at the Chopra household.
This is just typical dinner conversation?
Yes.
Wow.
Jeff, you know, one of the things that my dad taught Gotham and I, and I think it relates to who we aspire to be, when we were young, we used to meditate. And my parents never forced us to meditate, but taught us meditation and gave it to us as a tool. And when we'd be done, he'd have us repeat the following phrase, which is from the Course in Miracles, I believe. It says, "I am responsible for what I see. I choose the feelings I experience and set the goals I will achieve. And everything that seems to happen to me, I ask for and receive as I have asked." And then he would ask us what you asked for. Gotham would ask for tickets to the Celtics game.
Patriots Super Bowl, Red
Yeah.
Sox winning the title. Yeah.
Did they,
I mean,
they
the
showed
last
up?
decade has been pretty good.
Yeah. But then he'd ask us, well, what about asking for love or compassion or purpose or relevance? And so I think, you know, going back to it starts with us. We were really taught that as children.
This is what you're teaching your children too?
Yes, I hope so. I mean, you know, I've started meditating with them, and they're big proponents of that. But I think these were the things that influenced us growing up. But hopefully when you ask where does it start, I think it starts again from kind of incubating, thinking about the world we want to create, and then kind of doing it.
So do you see this as a thing that's going to take years to happen? Like we plant the seeds? Like you have inspired people watching right now around the world, people who care, people who want to make a difference, people who are listening. We have an audience here. If someone wanted to get involved with the Global Brain Project and start to actually connect, what would be a logical step for someone outside the Chopra family to do? What could we do to start this process, or at least to continue it?
I mean, I'm a huge believer in the power of social networks to transform the world. So I think it's putting the positive messages out there. You know, we have a platform on intent where people share their intents and connect with each other. But I think it's taking intention into action. And we have such amazing tools out there from, you know, people starting their own efforts and using those technologies, to donating, to really connecting and being part of a conversation. And I think that's one of the things that we're trying to do, is how do we use all of these networks, all of these platforms to get people to be the change themselves. And you know what's really inspiring that is technology today can connect me to someone in Mongolia or South Africa or New Delhi, India. So it becomes a global conversation. Which I think is the beginning. And I think technology will make it faster. I know you have thoughts on this.
First of all, you know, just as you asked, are you teaching your kids these things? So we had recently had a meeting with President Obama.
You did?
And,
of course you did. Wait.
And no, so Gotham, my grandson Krish was about 4 at that time. And the first thing he says to President Obama is, "Go Celtics." and President Obama says, "I knew the Chopra family was brainwashed, but I didn't know to this extent."
Typical Bulls fan response, you know.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah, I think since you asked, and since we have all these people globally listening to us and watching us, let's commit to 100 million people that make a personal commitment to be happy, to be healthy, to live peacefully, and to care about the environment and to care about each other. If we have 100 million people who make that personal commitment, the world will be transformed. We now know that there are two ways that transformation occurs. One is through these connections, okay? The second is a non-local phenomenon, which means when people reach a critical mass, then somehow, and there are theories about how this works, when there's a critical mass of behavior, then everybody assumes that's the way to do it. So, of course, people like Coca-Cola knows this, that you can go to Burundi and you'll see Coca-Cola signs there. In fact, I was speaking once to the former CEO of Coca-Cola, and I said, "What's your dream?" He said, "I have these two people from Somalia, and they're husband and wife, and they're in Times Square. They see a big sign, and it says Coca-Cola on Times Square, and the husband turns to the wife and he says, honey, they have Coke here as well." Okay? When you see that, that's critical mass, okay? That's a brand. But what's a brand? A brand is a story. A brand is a story that people want to believe in. And you can create a story that, when I was, again, when they were little kids, every night I'd tell them a story.
So what would be a typical story you tell them?
What do you see? Well, I would tell them a story and I'd leave it at what is called a cliffhanger, where everything is going wrong. And then I would say, complete the story. And the next day they would complete the story. And what I realized is every good story is a love story. Okay? Every story. No, but it's a love story. Now, along the way, there are adventures, there are challenges, there's the divine, there's the diabolical, there's the sinner, there's the saint, there's the falling down, there's the getting up, there's the quest, there's the climbing of the mountain, there's a vision, and then there's the coming back to tell the vision. Nobody said this better than Joseph Campbell, and what he said is, we need to create right now a new story. And that can only happen if we all speak to each other and let the story come out. But remember, it has to be a love story.
So, not to rain on the parade, but that's kind of the function I serve here. But, I think I think what's really important is, and honestly, this is what we talk about a lot, which is there's a lot of philosophy, there's a lot of existentialism. It put me and Mallika through college, so I'm not criticizing it, but it's also where does the rubber hit the road? And what the social media has been amazing at so far is inspiring people and creating movements, right? We've seen it in the last 2 years, I would say, very visibly in the Arab Spring. Social media has ignited revolutions, literally, in places like Egypt and Syria and Tunisia and other places. But we also see when those people are inspired and they create a movement and then they're sort of just left to deal with. We're seeing what's happening in Egypt right now, right? The dictator's gone, but now the Muslim Brotherhood is in. And it's, so now we have to sort of use social media to actually communicate and give people tools. And, I'll sort of speak about my father as if he's not here for a second, but he's written a book called The Soul of Leadership. It is very practical in terms of the practical tools that it gives people to be leaders in their families, in their communities. How do we now take the aftermath of this change we've created, which is great, but also move it forward? And I think that's the next evolution of social media. It's how we go beyond 140 characters and we create a conversation. It's what's great, again, about YouTube. It's not your traditional network. It's not like I'm sitting at, Fox Studios making decisions, broadcasting, and there's what you get. Social media is a two-way street, and that's what we aspire to with the Chopra. Well, sure, it's Chopras, there's some fun stuff, we all get to do some stuff, but ultimately, it's about creating a community, engagement, discussion, listening, reacting,
Gotham,
and really pushing it forward.
I think people would enjoy the Afghanistan story.
It's a long story, and we have 10 minutes.
We have as much time as you want.
Well, it's a 30-minute story, but when I graduated from college, I went to Columbia University, not far from here. And quite honestly, part of my graduating and being the son of Deepak Chopra and having all these amazing opportunities, didn't know how, that was not necessarily the life I wanted to just sort of go into. So my first job out of college, which in part I probably got because I was Deepak Chopra's son, is I got a job with a company called Channel One News, which broadcasts in schools all over the country. And I was brought in to help make the network more spiritual, I guess. But what I decided to do is I asked to be a foreign war correspondent. So
Really?
I spent 5 years traveling to Pakistan, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Colombia, Chechnya, North Korea,
really?
Iran, Iraq, all these places, broadcast to schools. So the great part, it's like a minor league baseball team. You get to take your cuts and nobody ever really sees what you're doing. So I have this story where I was in the northwest frontier part of Pakistan 3 weeks before September 11th at one of these madrasas, religious schools to some, terrorist training camps to others, depending on your point of view, and sat down with one of the mullahs who really actually had a fascinating conversation, which is, it takes the 30-minute story, but really about whose culture is influencing whom. And one of the things that sort of originated out of that experience was my realizing, as I interacted with a bunch of 14-year-old boys at this school, that they have no real heroes in that part of the world. You know, they have no superheroes. They have no aspirational heroes. The only ones that exist are these glorified gang leaders like Osama bin Laden's of the world. And literally 3 weeks later, and I was here on a flight from New York to LA on the morning of September 11th.
Wow.
You see what happens in a culture when it's bankrupt of heroes, and these guys fill the gap, you know, because they're charismatic and they welcome you into the gang, they give you a sense of belonging. All the types of things that, you know, throughout history, dictators and mass murderers have done. They've made people feel part of something. It can lead to a very dark place. Obviously, we're trying to do the opposite.
What was inspiration to do the channel on YouTube? What tripped it to, you said, oh, we have to do this?
You know, what I'd love to do, and we can do it either at the end,
No,
but
we
it's
should
a
now.
minute and 30 seconds.
Go ahead.
And I think, you know, it speaks to what the channel is better than, I think, what I could articulate.
All right, we'll go to show the video.
Yeah.
Can you be the change you want to see in the world?
It's a place where we get to explore what's important to us. Scientists, spiritualists, and the occasional psychotic. What's kind of cool is the diversity of some of the people who are going to be on this channel.
Discover, get inspired, and connect.
To feel joyful, to feel creative, to have kindness, compassion, love. What's your question?
So my question is, I want to know,
What do you think about
anxiety, sadness, anger, fear.
what do you think is the best way to create your reality?
So tell me a little bit about what's been happening.
A lot has been happening.
As much as she's showing you something, you're showing her something too. It was the fulfillment of what I knew in my body sex could be.
Do you know what a Guido is?
Say to your heart, peace, harmony, laughter, love. Humanity is walking around asleep and they need to awaken.
EEG and meditation have been studied for quite some time.
Hey, we all have our flaws.
Be the change you want to see in the world. Let's have some fun doing it.
Very nice.
I think you asked what's the inspiration
Yes.
behind that. I mean, we're very lucky and we're very honored to be working with YouTube on this and creating a channel and have found some great partners along the way. But I think it goes back to what each of us individually have been trying to do, inspired by my dad, is, you know, how can we use all the different platforms that are out there to inspire people to join together and manifest change.
When does this launch?
July 9th. So, but people can subscribe now.
Is there a certain date in your family history that July 9th is meaningful, or it's just a date?
No, it's just a date, but you know, you
Chosen
can.
by YouTube.
Yeah.
On YouTube. Oh.
But
Sure.
people can go subscribe now. And as I said, the goal really for us, though, is to make this a two-way conversation. Actually, not a two-way, a multi-channel conversation. And, you know, bring together people from all over the world and use all the social media channels that are out there to
And of
continue
course,
it.
you know, these days it's everything is free. So that's the advantage. You can subscribe and there's no payment for it. And everybody benefits, and actually at this moment the investment is totally from YouTube.
So I was last time I saw your daughter, I think you were in India with Oprah. I remember this.
I've said before that if she were married to me, she would be Oprah Chopra, but
I was just curious.
I'm actually honored to be the husband of their mother, who's the most amazing mother in the world. It was an amazing tour. You know, what I realized is that we were at a book festival, and I hope, Oprah, you're going to see this soon, but there was a little talk in this very intellectual book festival where the Nobel Prize winners, Booker Prize winners, you know, you have to say that India can be very snobbish. And so there was a little buzz, which my wife told me about, because people don't say in front of me, okay, what they might say when I'm not around. And so they were saying, this is such an amazing book festival. What is Deepak Chopra doing here? And what is Oprah doing here? You know, this is such a highbrow event. And then Oprah went on stage and she was interviewed for an hour by one of the most, I would say, intellectual, but also the most aggressive journalists in the country. And she won the audience over, and that show was repeated over and over, all over India.
Wow.
And it was just remarkable the way she connects with people. You know, these were cynical people, and they gave her a standing ovation, and of course then I was speaking afterwards, so my work was easy because she had already created the atmosphere for it. But in less than 2 weeks, she was the most popular person in India.
Wow. And what was her reaction while this was happening?
She is a very interesting person in that, you know, again, we were at a party, a Bollywood party, to give you an example, okay? We were at a Bollywood party where all the young stars and heroes of the movies were there, all the glitterati, so to speak, and they all wanted a picture with Oprah, of all the people. And these are people who are very famous in India and the world. And then after dinner, there was a slightly older actress who I had grown up with, and her name is Shabana Azmi. And not many people know her outside of India. And even in India, she's an older movie actress. So I introduced her to Oprah, and I just casually said, this is Shabana Azmi, and she's a real actress, you know. And Oprah turned to her and she said, yes, I know, she's like the Meryl Streep of India. And I was shocked. I said, how would she know? Okay, how would she know this? It was the most appropriate, not only compliment, but observation. Afterwards, I found out that she had looked up every guest at that party. There were 150 people at that party,
wow.
And she knew everyone. Now that's a dedicated, hardworking, professional woman.
Wow.
You know.
Wow. So, if it's all right with you, I'd like to maybe go to the audience for a few questions. I figure they may have. Could add 5 minutes, just change that to 5 minutes, please? Gio, please, just 5. People have questions for the Chopra family?
I see one over here.
Just say who you are, please, so
My name's Linda Polk, and I don't really have a question. I have a thank you and a gift. My thank you is in 1997, I started working inside a prison as a practicum student, getting my master's degree. I showed one of your videos in a group session called a processing group, and I look across the table, I'm looking in the room, and a lot of the prisoners, their eyes were glassing over. They've never heard of you before, don't know anything about recovery. And I see this guy, he's going word for word what you're reading in your video, which is a Rumi poem. And today I'm married to this guy. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wow.
And so my gift is to you and to every parent in the room. I recently read Marshall Rosenberg saying,
Yes.
hell is any parent who believes there's such a thing as being the perfect parent. So please don't. But I'm sure you're great.
Thank you. Someone else, maybe in the front here over here, gee, I just can't see, but their hands up around here.
Okay.
And also in front, too. And then in front of her. Then after that, the person.
Hi, my name is Sybil Lake. I just am so excited to be here and see you guys all together. I just think it's so beautiful. I'm really, really excited to just see you together like this, doing something so amazing. I grew up with a scientist family, but there's no spirituality there. When I was probably about 17, I got Ageless Body, Timeless Mind from like a lending library. And I had really bad skin, like terrible acne, and I would do this, some of the meditations. And, it was for, not getting old and all these things. But I just, your line about, perception seems to be automatic, but it in fact is a learned phenomenon. Yeah, I would repeat that again and again, and it was a big part of my life. And I've been doing some, I've started a spiritual show, and I just wanted to know how maybe I could get involved with you guys. I've just finished a book called Your Soul's Missing Manual, and even though I'm no expert, and I want to, I'm starting a show about it.
So you can email me at Mallika, Mallika @intent.com, and then.
Also, by the way, you can upload, and this is for everyone, you can upload your own videos on our channel too.
Wonderful. And
so anybody
I would love
all
to.
of you.
That'd be great. That'd be great. And one other thing I just wanted to say, I think is so amazing about today, is that you said the thing that I think is the biggest change in the world is teaching children how to meditate. I mean, I just think it's such a blessing, And
just to respond to that, absolutely, I agree. There is no perfect parent. My dad is definitely not a perfect parent. That should not come across.
I mean, there's no perfect person,
No, but I think he would recognize that as well. But I think, to aspire to be a good parent is a good thing. But I've seen personally, I started meditating when I was 9, and Gotham started meditating when he was 6. And so it was a tool that we both had our entire lives. And both of my daughters at the age of 5, my father taught them how to meditate.
That's amazing. That is so great.
I really believe in that.
And I should sort of say, in the interest of full disclosure, I started when I was 6, but it was also because my father paid me $5 every time I actually completed it.
Stand up, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Emily. I'm a motivational speaker, so I actually have dedicated my whole life to spreading a similar message as your own, and I just want to say that I'm extremely grateful to be in your presence and to hear the voice of truth be spread across the world, and I just think it's so important. And it's funny because you keep mentioning the quote about be the change you wish to see in the world, and Friday, I got a tattoo on my arm that says, I vow to always be the change I wish to see in the world.
Good for you. That's great.
That's called synchronicity.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So as you're speaking, I'm like, wow, that's the quote. I vowed to Gandhi, and I vowed to the universe and to humanity to be that exact change.
Wow. All right.
So,
thank you.
I guess it's a question, but when I wrote this, I find sometimes when I put out a spiritual message or I feel it's inspired from the universe, there's an ego that wants to attack, and I had an attack, and I guess I have a question. Do you, and then I just neglect it and push it aside because we have to keep the positive around us, but do you ever have that ego come towards you?
Well, here's what you do. Trying to fight the ego is the ultimate melodrama of the ego, because the ego says, I want to fight the ego. So if you want, the way I learned to handle it is I listen to my kids. Okay, and that's, if you really want to, and I listen to my wife, and, if you really want to handle your ego, listen to your kids and your wife, and also observe what happens to you, because every time the ego acts up, you don't feel good. Your body gets tight, so observe the tightness.
I would just add, when we were kids, I remember this very clearly. I was at an airport and I saw a magazine with a cover, and it had my dad in like full lotus, with like 15 arms and snake oil. And so we grew up with people labeling him a snake oil salesman. It was only probably in the late 90s that he became more popular. So it was, as children, it was a lesson all the time to like, do you believe in yourself? And at the end of the day, you'd get there by being present and connected to yourself, because people were always attacking. So,
one more question.
Hi, I'm Gina, and I wanted to first thank you all for your approachable spirituality. I think it's been a great experience for all of us. But my question for you, Deepak, is what would you say is the most profound lesson that you learned in your humanity from your children?
They opened my boundaries. So, I've realized that children, and that's not just my children, all children, are more creative than their parents. And if you allow a child to express their wonder and curiosity and their storytelling skills, you unfold their potential. So I think it's appropriate that we end with a great quote from Rabindranath Tagore, Indian poet. He says, every child that is born is proof that God has not yet given up on humanity.
Wow. Thank you, really. Any closing comments? Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I would thank you and thank everybody. And I think, we're excited to, I think you've been one of the pioneers of this environment now that we're living in, where we can have this
I would add there are a few people, Jeff, in the world that would get my dad, me, and Gotham all to fly from different parts of the world to be here with you. So
I love you guys.
We all love you.
I do. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.